Welcome to the Dr. Tom Show. Today, I'm really excited to have a good friend, mentor, and my coach on the show, Laurence Tham. Laurence helps countless chiropractors around the world to really create freedom in their practice. And the reason that I work with Laurence and have done for such a long time is he's not all about practice, practice, practice. He's about really rounding your life in all areas, and really has helped me and my family with our practice, but also our personal life. So it's an absolute pleasure to have some time, turn the camera on Laurence for a change, and really find out a little bit more about what it is to find freedom and performance. So Laurence, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
It's such a pleasure and a true honor to be on the show. I know you had some great guests on here, and I'd just love to be able to share, any insight that I can possibly have with people who are listening to this podcast.
Well, thank you. And I suppose we'll start off. You talk about having a freedom practice, and you help a lot of people find freedom. But what is freedom? How do we define that? What does it really look like to people?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing is that for me as a coach, it's really to help people help and guide people to find their own freedom. And the definition of freedom is going to be very different from person to person. You're in the UK, I'm here in Australia. I got clients in, both of those sort of, UK, Canada and Australia and New Zealand. Everybody has a different version of freedom, and it also depends on how they grew up, what their experiences are like. So I think what's important here is that it's how you define freedom. Now, when I ask people what freedom is to them, most of the time they don't know they've never actually thought about it. They go, freedom is like, well, I just need to earn enough money so I can do whatever I want. Okay, well, then I ask the question, is that really freedom, right? Because that to me sounds more like I want to make sure I have security, right? Because which is the exact opposite. If you think about freedom and security are two different things. And so security is about I have enough income that I make per year or in my life or have saved up in my life so that I can do whatever I want. So is that freedom or is that stability? And I think it's a bit of both, right? It's about having stability and the certainty that we have X of X, whatever, whether it be time, money, or energy, so that we have the freedom to do this. And I think it's really important for us to kind of analyze that, because oftentimes people misconstrue what freedom actually means to them. Now, I think like most of us who are listening or watching this show, we are pretty privileged. We're in a first world area, and most of the time we have the technology. You're listening. Literally, we have two guys here talking from across the world, right? Like probably 13 hours apart in time. And we are discussing and recording something that could go on the line to reach millions of people if they choose to want to watch this. And that is an amazing feat that for us to be able to do that. And for able to access information for free and to be able to do things that we want to do, I think that is partly, or we live in a very freedomistic society. Now, I don't want to get into all the politics and all the things of what's happening around the world right now, but I'm just talking about your choice. To me, freedom is about, being able to choose a life that you want. And I think most of us want a life that is aligned to our values. That's number one. And number two is that we want to make sure that we mattered in this world. So it's about contribution. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, you need stability. Like you need that certainty you have enough to be able to create. Now, this is just my opinion. I'm going to just state that right from the beginning. It's not necessarily have to be anybody else. It's not Tom, it's mine. It's just mine. I do believe in the world that we live in, for majority of us, that means that we have to have money to be able to create that freedom. Now, do you need it? No, you don't. You don't have to, but I think it helps, right? It helps that you have a stability or certainty that you have an existing amount of income or savings or investment so that you can actually pursue the goals that you actually have. So sometimes when people say, the pursuit of money is bad. Well, sometimes if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, but if you pursue money to create the freedom that you actually have in your life, I think that's a good thing. So when I talk about, like say freedom practice, for chiropractors, for example, or any business, I think the goal is to first create profit, right? Profit is about so that you can earn. Most people misconstrue the word profit. They think it's all about money. No, it's not. It's about money so that it's what you do with that money that matters. And I know this might just be on words, but it's the semantics, but it's really, really think about it. It's like you want to earn a profit so that you can use that profit to advance your mission. And maybe your mission is to help a whole million people. Maybe your mission is to create freedom for yourself, or maybe your mission is to create freedom for others. But it's the business itself is not about the mission to make money. Okay. The business mission itself is to create profits so that you can advance your mission. And that comes from Simon Sinek. And I love that thought process. You know, we need to create a business so that we can make money, so that we can actually create the freedom that we desire. And your freedom, what you love, Tom, and what I love is totally different things. And that's okay. That's what makes the world great. We don't all have to have the same definition of what freedom means to us. But I think what's important is that, and we can maybe get into this discussion, is choosing. The choice is as a human being to choose a life or a destiny that you want. Not what you think others will think of you want, is what you want. And that has to be, really comes down to alignment. And as chiropractors, I think we can all resonate with that, is that we have to align our life to what we truly value.
I would definitely agree. And you certainly, you know, I can see the context of that with you helping me do that. We've discussed freedom before, and I think we actually boiled it down to control as my definition of freedom, which was so contrary to what I thought at the start. But then you talk about this ability to do what you want. I wouldn't be able to do this podcast if I didn't have the revenue coming in from the other business. I wouldn't be able to get on a plane and speak to an audience somewhere else without the revenue from another business. And
That's right.
both of those businesses have the same vision to be helping more people. So, you know, you're right. There's no badness or awkwardness behind making money out of something that really is helping other people.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think of freedom when they see the first word, like the initial reaction is that, oh, I'm going to live on a beach and do whatever. Like, no, that's not that. If that's what you want, that's awesome, right? But first, you got to get stability. You have to get all of those things to allow you to do that. And so, with a contradiction, not a contradiction, but when you think about it, is that what we need is actually security or control to create the freedom.
Mm.
But some people who want freedom only, they go, I don't like control. I don't like, having a set schedule and ritual. And well, the thing is that in order to have the freedom, you kind of need some ritual, right? Because if you're like, don't have any ritual whatsoever, you can't have freedom, right? Let's kind of nail it down to something very simple. Like for some of us, we can have cheat days or just cheat meals, or we can have ice cream and whenever, not whenever we want, but like, once in a while we can do that. That's freedom, right? Well, why? Is because most of the time we're eating well, right? We have this ritual of like staying healthy and eating healthy food majority of the time, and we're exercising on a regular basis. So an ice cream or a pizza here once in a while is not going to be a detrimental thing. But if you don't have the ritual of eating healthy and, and have exercise routines and living a really good life, then, having the freedom to do this isn't necessarily healthy for you, because it's just, there's no freedom there. So it's contradiction at the same time, but it's not. It's just a balance between two things, and you need both.
That's interesting, that balance thing, because I historically hated the word balance until you started to describe, drives of human emotion, and we naturally are moving between. I think two you said to me is connection and significance, like these two different driving human emotions, which are almost polar opposite, and that can create the frustration. I suppose the same was with the freedom. You want this, but you've got to have that, or you want to be significant, but you also want to have connection.
Well, let's define the word. Like I don't know if there's ever such thing as balance, because, and I want to come back to this because it's really important. Balance in itself, and that's why we think we don't like the word, is because it's almost like it's balance. It's actually only still. It's in one point, right? And I prefer the word homeostasis, right? Because homeostasis is a fluctuating movement between that, and ultimately that you're trying to find a balance, but at one point maybe a balance for 1 second, but then it's off kilter, and when people say work-life balance, well, there's never been a work-life balance, because when you're working for a reason, and when you're living a life, you're living a life. But it's about the fluctuation of that, right? The homeostasis going, and we work on human bodies all the time, and in human bodies the same thing. We were maintaining a certain amount of homeostasis. We're never still, right? We're never, if you draw your blood or take your heart rate or whatever, that's a moment in time that heart rate is up, right? So we can, take your pulse right now and you're like beating, it's 70 beats per minute or something. But if I just get you to do like 5 burpees all of a sudden your heart rate is like 100, that's that moment in time, because of all the other factors, because the homeostasis required you to function at 100 beats per minute, rather than 70. And I think that's what we're kind of looking for in life, is that life is about this constant flowing of energy, And it's about moving from one side to the other, but it's appreciating both sides.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the reason balance puts me off and other people is it's almost a mediocre word. It's a bit vanilla. And I do struggle with that somewhat, but understanding that flow and you're putting all your energy into one area, or all your, your focus, as opposed to I'm going to dip into the family life for a minute and then I'm going to dip back out into the business life. I think it's important to have that focus in those both areas, which I suppose brings me on a little bit to what I also wanted to discuss was performance. And how can you cultivate the person or the performance or the will to focus in on what you want to do, because there's a lot of distraction. It's been a very long year for a lot of people. Like, how can you cultivate some of those things to stay on track with your your contribution and in alignment with your values?
Yeah, the first thing I can think of right now is that I think when we talk about performance, I think a lot of people kind of focus on action. They kind of push themselves and like, I just need to take more action. I need to stop procrastinating. I need to do more things. And if you think about from an action perspective, let's just, and for the audience who are listening to this, like, or even watching this, is that think of it as like 3 circles. Like there's an outside circle, there's a middle circle, and there's like one core circle. Okay. So like there's 3 layers. Well, action is on the outside. Okay. Actions like the things on the outside core, and actions that we take is based on, and we try to change the action. Everybody wants like, oh, what, Tom, tell me, like, what do I need to do to be less procrastination? Like, how do I get more out of life? And they ask you for tips, and everybody's always looking for like tactics. Like, so I see that as a tactical thing. Well, actions really stems from the middle layer. Okay. So let's go one layer in, which is basically your behavior or your beliefs. Right. And so the thing is that your belief dictates your action. So which means if you believe in a certain way, if you believe not to be lazy, or you believe that this thing you're chasing is matters to you, you're going to take certain actions. So let's kind of simplify back to like food, for example, or exercise even. The action is go to the gym, work out, right? The behavior, the identity, but underneath that, right, is that, exercising as a strategy is going to be helpful to do whatever you want. And so just say the goal is I need to get fitter. Well, for what reason, right? And so behavior that dictates the action, the thing that dictates behavior is your identity, right? It's the identity that's the core. And so what that means, let's go back to performance, is that the mistake that most people make is they change the actions only without changing their behaviors. But really what you need to do is change the identity, which is the core inside. You need to look at yourself and go like, what am I doing? Why am I increasing my performance in the first place? And what's my relationship with performance? What's my relationship with myself? What am I doing this for? What's your why is kind of coming down to that. Because the identity of someone who is like, if you look at anybody who is super fit, okay, like in chiseled body, freaking 6-pack abs, blah, 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 right? You look at that person or guy or girl, you automatically assume they've taken action. Like no one just walks out of bed like that, right? So which means that they have certain rituals and behavior. I know you do, Tom. I know it's a rarity, but there's 1 in 1 billion, right? But there's actions that they take. And then the behavior they do is going to the gym and they would guarantee you with probably absolute certainty, they eat certain types of food and they exercise on a regular basis, right? And if they have that type of body, guaranteed that their identity on how they see fitness and what they look like matters to them, right? Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just using that as an example because the identity of that person, like he or she obviously feels or recognizes or believes that looking good matters to whatever they're trying to accomplish. So is that performance? Well, maybe. And let's go back to like, say, smoking, for example. Well, that's an action. Now, people just say, well, stop smoking. Well, have you ever tried to tell a non-smoker, and anybody who's listening to this, who's a former smoker, to say, don't smoke? It's like, yeah, easy for you when you don't smoke, right? Well, that's the action. But the behavior, the rituals is like, whenever you stress, you grab a cigarette. Well, the identity part of that is that you're a smoker. So one of the things I used to tell my patients, like, if you really want to quit smoking, I don't tell people what to do. Like, when they say, oh, listen, I really want to quit smoking. Okay, for the first thing you need to do is tell yourself you're a non-smoker. And they go like, no, it can't be that simple as that. No, I'm not saying it's as simple as that, but you need to identify yourself, the identity, which is the core, identifies you're a non-smoker. Well, why is that important? Because if I came to you in a bar and I offer you a cigarette or you offer me a cigarette and I say, no, sorry, I don't smoke. You go, oh, okay. You're not going to offer me that cigarette again because you just know my identity is a non-smoker. So why would you offer a non-smoker a smoke? Right. But if I said, it goes, oh, I'm trying to quit. It goes, oh, come on now. Right. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just one more. Right. Because I identify myself as a smoker who's trying to quit. And I know it's subtle, but that difference is massive. And that's the thing. And when you come back to performance, is that it has to come down to your identity first. The mindset around you, if you're going to focus on something to increase your performance, whatever performance means to you, is you need to change the identity of what performance means to you, or identity of what that thing you're chasing after means to you. That has to be in alignment. Then you choose the rituals and behaviors that matter, which then will dictate the actions that you're going to choose.
So if people have fallen into bad actions, for instance, over here in the UK, things have been shut for a long time and it's really changed how people are acting. I do believe that that's filtered down into some people's identity because it's just been relentless. How could people look to maybe try and change their identity or re-engage with their identity to improve their actions?
Yeah, I think sometimes and this happens a lot, and when we start to fall into a routine, day-to-day routine with relationships or relationship with ourselves or anything, we allow the ritual and the ritual or the behavior dictate our actions, and we've forgotten why we did it in the first place, right? And that happens. And how do I know that? Well, think about rituals that you do. I would ask the audiences, and Tom, you can answer this for the audience. It's like, well, what hand do you start to brush your teeth with every day? Right hand. Where part of your teeth do you start with? Top left, bottom left, top right, or bottom right?
It's really top right.
Right, top right. Okay. And what hand, when you go in the shower, what hand do you grab the soap with?
Right.
Where part of your body do you start with?
Head.
Right. And you use the soap in your head? Okay.
Yeah, that's where you get the suds, mate, and then you work around.
That's called shampoo, man. When you come out of the shower, you grab the towel, where do you start drying off first? Right. And the reason why I'm asking these questions is because you probably never thought about it, but every single one of you would have said whatever you said, which is identified to yourself. And you've been doing that 100, 1,000 times, 1,000 times, or tens of thousands of times over your lifetime in that exact same way. Right. That's a ritual. It's maybe an unplanned ritual, but it's a ritual. If I asked you, Tom, you said you grabbed your toothbrush with your right hand. And I asked you today, I go, when you brush your teeth later on today, I want you to start with, you grab a left hand. Instead of going to the top right, I want you to go to the bottom left to start with. Just imagine doing that right now. It feels awkward, right? It's like, that doesn't feel right, right? Instead of like shampooing your head first, I want you to start with your toes. You'd be like, this doesn't make sense. And that's the thing with change. People don't like change. And so, when we go back to this is why the identity is so important. We got to reflect on why did we have a routine for exercise in the first place? Like, where did this come from? Why are we exercising? I think this is a good time, good really pause for our society right now, is to start reflecting, why do we do the things that we normally do every single day of our life? And this is a great time for us to, for business owners or for, normal people to look at, why do I drive the same way to work every day? Why do I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day? Why do I go to bed at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock? Why do I watch certain shows? Why do I read certain genres? Why do I listen to podcasts? Why do I watch TV? I'm not saying there's a perfect answer here, but it's great to look at those answers so that you start to look at the identity and why do I do the things that I do? And sometimes by questioning it, it actually you might start to make a conscious effort now to change because you don't like who you've become. Right? And it's unconscious. Now you're just taking control. And I honestly believe that we have this ability to control and take back your destiny. The thing is that there's a lot of things going on right now that you have no control over. And I get it's frustrating. I get that it is debilitating at times. And if you continue focusing on the things that you can't do, you're going to be you have just lost freedom. Let's go back to the first conversation. Because if you focus on what you can or cannot do, now you've just given your freedom. That means that whoever they are, is controlling your life. Now, I tend to like this whole experience of, what's happening around the world in the last year. I kind of look at it and go, you know what? Like, there are definitely things I have no control over. When a fire happens or someone crashes your car, or, all these things that happen to you, like, they're happening to you. Right. And in a sense, that's the environment. You didn't create that, but you also have to take responsibility. That's me gaining back control. I'm taking responsibility that I might have put myself in that position. Now you might, that's silly. Someone crashed into you. How did you well, I decided to drive that day, didn't I? Mm-hmm. I just decided to drive in that lane, on that moment, on that street, at that time. Now you might be thinking like, that is stupid. That is silly. I go, yeah, but that's me gaining back control. Because if I say that this is just bad luck, then I had no control in my life. I'm just trying to take back control. Now, am I blaming 100% responsibility? No, I'm not blaming myself. I'm just saying like, that's part of my responsibility. Now, maybe even 2% of my responsibility, and that car hit me, fine, but I got to take responsibility. So why am I doing that? I'm training my brain to go, you know what? The life that I want to live, I'm in control over. And what that means, I can control the things I can control. Going back to the moment of like the exercise part, it's like, you know what? I know the gyms are closed right now. But is that the only thing that's why you're not in the gym? I would disagree, right? Just because the gyms aren't open, I guarantee you there's thousands of people out there that still found a way to train, right? Still found something to train. You don't have a kettlebell? Cool. Grab something heavy. Grab a backpack and put some sand in it, or, grab some flour and put some, dump it into a backpack. There's your kettlebell or some weight. You can't, don't have a barbell? Go do some burpees, right? We all know, like, go do 100 burpees. That's going to be a good enough exercise for you to start off with.
It's a week's worth, Laurence.
So I think it's about gaining back that control. Why is that important? It's because I think in this time right now, that's the most important thing we need to do. It's about gaining control back into your life, because it's the sense, and what we talked about earlier about freedom. You have freedom when you gain back control, that this is what I can control and create the destiny. Now, remember, there are still outside factors that have no influence. The government telling you where you can or cannot go. That's a government influence. I'm here in Australia. I can't fly. I flew like once a month, and now I haven't gone on a plane in over a year. That's fine. I can't control that. So what do? I focus on what I can control. Where can I go? What can I do? Because if I start dwelling, if I've been dwelling that I can't fly, if I've been complaining over the last year, where does that get me? It doesn't get me anywhere. I'm going to focus on the things I have absolute control over. I have clients all around that I can't run retreats for. You know what? Then we move it online. Like, those are things I can control. And I think all of us have that ability to be able to control our life and the decisions that we make. But it comes down to will. Your willingness to go, you're not waiting for someone to tell you what to do. Okay. The will has to come from you. The driver and the hunger has to come from you individually. Tom can't do it for you. Tom can inspire you. He can stand by you. He can help you. He can walk you through to the edge. But if anybody who's ever done like skydiving or like bungee jumping, Tom can walk you to the edge, centimeters if you need to, millimeters if you want to. But at the end, there's got to be a point where you have to decide to take the leap of faith, right? Because Tom can't jump for you. He can push you, but he's not going to, right? Mm-hmm. But he can guide you right to the edge, and you got to trust. At some point, you have to trust that the rope is going to be strong enough. You got a parachute, working parachute, or you got wings, or whatever it is. Like, the thing is that all of us are here to help you, but every single one of you watching or listening to this, you need to take that drive within yourself to take the leap, and you have to trust the training, the lessons that you learned through your life, and the experiences have got you to this point to create a safety net that you can make that jump. We're not asking you to jump like 20 feet away. We're just asking you to make a leap and put some trust in yourself that you can take that action. But like I said, all of us can guide you to the edge, but you actually have to take the action and take the step.
It's so brilliant. It's really true. And it all circles back around with our conversation. And you spoke about those 3 concentric circles. And oftentimes we're looking into the distance, aren't we? And we're forgetting what's right beneath our feet, and where we can start. So that's really helpful. And I suppose, is there any, I mean, that was a perfect piece of advice to leave our audience with, but I'm going to ask you for one more.
Sure, go for it.
You know, for those that want freedom, for those that want to really start living their potential for life, what's something you can guide them on? Like, how can we get them to fuel that fire, charge that focus, and actually start to do their thing?
Okay. There's a lot of answers, and I think the answers will come down to a couple of factors. And I want to state this, like, I want to kind of frame this properly. One is that this is going to be different depending on what life cycle you're in. So if you're in a 20-year-old, like right now, you're like, you don't need to find the purpose in life. Like right now, you just got to go out and explore, right? If you're 30, or 40 or 50 or 60, everybody's going to be different. So don't copy any other. Actually, I heard a quote which is great, was comparison is the theft of joy. Right? I'll say it again. Comparison is the theft of joy. And which means that every single time you're comparing yourself to someone else, whatever they're chasing, what freedom means or what life means or profit or whatever, it's stealing the joy of you enjoying the life that you want to live. So that's the framing. So when I give you this, like my thoughts around this is, one is, first, you got to define what you want. Now, I know that seems simple, but I can tell you from my experience, it takes years. I'm still on my journey. I'm still trying to figure out what I want in life. And so why do I tell you that? Well, because I'm telling you, I haven't figured it all out either. I'm still part of the herd of people trying to define like what life is about for me. Now I have a hypothesis, right? And so I think that's the most important thing. You may never know what your true purpose in life is. I'll repeat that. You may live and die and never know your true purpose in life. And you got to be okay with that. And what is that? Well, I know we're running out of time, so I'm just going to do this quickly. I use the analogy of a bumblebee. What's the purpose of a bumblebee, to a bumblebee? And most people will say to make honey. And so I would ask you, do you think that the bumblebee was like, my life purpose is to make more honey? But from an outside perspective as human beings, we looked at the bumblebee, like, what is the purpose of the bumblebee? Well, it's pollination. Without bees, there's no cross-pollination. There's no beautiful flowers and fruits that we see. And, our earth will be very different. But do you think a bumblebee ever knows that the true purpose in life is pollination and not making honey? And the answer is no. The bumblebee will live and die, never knowing its true purpose. Well, for some of us, you just have to accept the fact that we may be bumblebees, that we think we are doing on the right path, which is hypothesis, and we may die not knowing exactly what we're really meant for this world, for. So stop chasing your purpose. Go do something, right? You don't have to wait until you find your purpose and passion. Just do something. Do what you think is right now. If you're 20 years old, you think this is your purpose, go for it. I guarantee you, by the time you're 30, you realize, like, what the hell was I doing? That's okay. We all go through that, right? In your 30s, you think this is my purpose in life. And when you hit your 40s, I'm like, wow, what was I thinking? The reason why that happens every 10 years or so is because, listen, you change, right? You evolve. That's part and parcel of growth in a human being, and that's okay. So I've accepted that fact. What I felt was purpose in my life in my 20s and 30s and now my 40s I know will be different and will change. But I'm continually, always, to keep moving. I don't have to run fast. I'm just keeping moving towards what I think, as from a hypothesis, is my true purpose in life. I don't know what that is. I may die without knowing, but that's okay. The worst thing that any of us can do is staying still. Is standing still, meditating, trying to figure out their purpose in life. Because you can go 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 60 years of your life and not knowing, and you stand still. And then it's maybe at 70, you go, aha, I found it. And then you take a step. Now you're not even able to walk or run or do towards it. You don't have time now. And you missed out on the best part of life and what life is about. So my suggestion is, do anything, pick a direction and just go for it, right? And things that people that go, find your passion, that's BS, right? Because passion, the word passion, people forget, it comes from the Latin word to suffer. Okay? Go look it up. Passion is the suffer. The passion of Christ is the suffering of Christ, not the love of Christ, it's the suffering. So which means the passion is finding your passion means this. It's not about chasing something you love. It's about chasing something you're willing to do to suffer through it. That is passion. And you're not born with it. No one's born a professional tennis player. No one's born to play football. No one's born to be a chiropractor or whatever it is. You fall in love with it over time. When you played enough tennis and you go, you know what? I think I love this. That's how you develop passion by doing, not finding passion first and then doing it. No one does that. Name a person who have found their passion before they actually did it. It's impossible. Mozart played music and then found passion in it. They didn't like found passion in music and go start learning how to play piano. No one does that way. So to summarize this, take action towards something, anything that you feel right. And I would trust that your internal innate guidance is going to be better than anybody who tells you what you should be doing. No one's going to come and save you. So therefore, accept that fact that you're the only person that will go and direct your own entire life. It's your responsibility to have a great life, and so go and get it.
Thank you so much, Laurence. You know, as ever, and as much as you've helped me over the years, it always circles back to finding out what we want to do, not trying to tell us what we should do. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today. You know, I've heard you speak countless times, but I've also learned something new again today. So thank you very much. It's always a pleasure and an honor to have time with you. If people want to find out some more from you or about you or connect with you, how can they do that?
Listen, like you can go online and just search my name, Laurence Tham, LAURENCETHAM. I got tons of videos online, on YouTube, on Facebook. My company's Drive Your Practice. You can kind of look me up there. LaurenceTham.com is my website. Yeah, I mean, I'm everywhere. And I'll leave you with this one thought is that, yes, we do have to find, you know, what we are aligned with, but most importantly, surround yourself with people who will keep you accountable to it. Because at the end of the day, it's oftentimes it's a lonely journey, but you don't have to do it yourself. Because oftentimes we don't know what we truly want ourselves, and we need perspective, and the perspective is what's most important. So surround yourself with people who would tell you the truth, who keep you accountable and keep you aligned, and that's what's really important.
Thank you very much for being on the show today, Laurence. An absolute pleasure.
Pleasure, guys.